Okay, I am live and I see all the little things are ticking. Okay, welcome back to the Fruit of the Spirit. This is episode 9 of this series. And so we've been meeting every other week or twice a month, and we're getting close to the end. We only have 4 more episodes in this series. All right, so for those of you who, here, let me move this image. I'm going to squeeze this over to the other side. Can you guys see that? So we are working on faithfulness, which is the dark blue. And for those of you who watched the pillow of the month, I have 3 of my blocks done. I will finish one more when I get off of here, and I will have my nice big pillow. So I'm ready for this one. All right, so let me show you what you need for today. So if you're not familiar with the series or any of the series that I'm working on, you need to check out my website. And so let me just show you where to find that. And so there it is. It's at www.jellyrollclub.com. And we are working on faithfulness. And so if you scroll down, you can see this is where the handout link is. And if you miss the live, you can just go on here and you can watch them. So this is what you need. You need this little apple here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this concept, but a lot of people refer to the verse of the Bible that talks about the apple of your eye, which means that as long as you are faithful to God, that this is that you're cherished and guarded by our Creator. And so apples are one of my favorite fruits. They're super healthy. And so faithfulness is what you need. There's only 2 pages in this handout. And let me show you what we're working on. So I'm going to switch views. All right, you should see me. What you see is in front of me. And so today I'm going to use some Pellon 805. This is the paper side. What I did is I took the handout for the little apple. You don't even need a light box because it's nice and dark. You just lay that right on top and you trace that. If you want to use the interfacing method, you can do the same thing and you can cut that and sew around that. But for this particular project, we're just using fusible. I'm going to use scraps of red, but a 5-inch circle is plenty large for that apple. So as you can see there, a 5-inch circle will get you exactly what you need. I mean, a 5-inch square. You can also use scraps like this if you have them, and you can just cut this in 2 halves and just use scraps if you want to. You need a 5-inch square of tan for the middle of your apple. And then you need some scrappy bits for the stem and for the leaf. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I've already made all of my star blocks. I did that earlier in the season. And just I want to show you what we've done so far. So far we have made a strawberry block. And you should have made a strawberry block. Just like this. You should have already made a watermelon block. And it looks like this. You should have made cherries. And mine look like this. We made pomegranates. And mine look like this. We made pineapples. And then the last one we made was an orange. And so these are all of the blocks we've made. And so today we're going to work on the dark blue one, and that one is going to be faithfulness. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me show you how to assemble this apple. So I'm going to use a pair of scissors, and I'm going to cut this out as so. So the first thing that I did is I traced around the apple using a pencil. I prefer pencils over anything else. I'm not going to use any Inktense markers on this, but I'm going to cut a little bit of extra around. So if you notice, I leave a border, and so I'm going to cut this like this, leave just an extra border all the way around that apple, and then I'm going to cut the center out of this so that I don't waste that stuff in the middle. And so I'm going to take this right here, and I'm going to take my seam ripper, and I'm going to go just inside there, and I'm going to come inside here, and I'm going to literally like a 1/16 of an inch inside that drawn line. I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to use this to make my apple. Now that means the glue won't go all the way out to the edge, but that's okay. So once I have this cut out, I'm going to adhere this central part to the actual apple part. You guys see what I'm doing? There we go. So I have this little shape that looks like my apple. If you notice, I cut some of that and left it on this side. So that means I'm going to have to cut outside my fabric. Now I have two sides of my fabric. My fabric has like a little speckly side on one side and then one that's lighter. I think I'm going to use the darker side. So I'm going to take and I'm going to press this straight onto the back. Just like this. With a hot dry iron. Now this is going to be a little bit short if I cut it right on that line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out here and I'm going to do like a 1/16 of an inch outside of that gluey part, because what I want to do is I want to be able to layer that without creating too much bulk. So I have paper that's been fused to the back, and then I have a little edge that has not been fused onto any kind of fusible paper. So I'm just going to go like this. Now some people will just tell you to cut all of these out onto fusible and then layer it on top, but it can get really kind of thick and gluey, and I don't like that. And so now I have an edge that has no glue on the outside, and then I have paper in the middle. I'm just going to make sure that I adhere that paper really well. And now I'm going to get this section and I'm going to glue it down onto my fabric. Now this is a batik, so it has the same color on both sides, but if you really want to, you can make sure that you're gluing that on the wrong side. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it in half. And I'm going to adhere it like this onto one of these scraps. And this way, I'm not wasting as much fabric. So these are just scraps out of my scrap bin, and I can save these two pieces for another project. And then I'm going to take this and just kind of center it here. And I'm going to come in here until that glue melts ever so slightly. And I'm going to move this out of the way because I'm being a little bit dangerous. All right. For those of you who prefer other applique methods, you can use any applique method of your choice. I'm just showing you how to do fusible for this particular project, and I'm doing fusible all the way through. And there we have it. I have both halves of the apple, the outside of the skin, just like that. And say hello to each other. For those of you who are new to my channel, this is a friendship channel, so all you have to do is get in that chat, say hello to each other, ask questions, chat about anything that you want to chat about, and that's what we do in our chat. All right, so I have these parts, and now I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to trim just inside that line on this half. And the reason I cut it in half is because it makes it so much easier to deal with. Now I'm going to come around here. And I'm going to leave no edge, just like that. Then on this outside, I'm going to come out here and literally just go right outside that outside drawn line. And I have half of my apple, like this. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to snip that off. So I have one half of my apple now that I'm going to be placing right on that edge. And by doing it like this in two halves, it just makes it easier for me to maneuver all of the things that I need to maneuver. And it reduces waste as well. What is the smallest piece of fabric that I throw away? Well, I try not to throw away any fabric, but if I have little bits and pieces that are less than an inch, then I usually do toss those. But sometimes I keep even little tiny squares like this right here, because that could be used in another applique. So I save a little baggie with those. Maybe someday I'm going to start not saving every little bit, but for now I save everything. All right, and then we just snip it right there. You guys can see what that looks like. And then this one just on the inside of the line, just like I did the other one. All right. So anytime that I have a layered applique, I try to reduce the amount of layers of fabric that are laid on top of each other with glue. And then I try to reduce the amount of bulk as well. So I'm going to trim that one. Okay. So now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find my two little bits that I had. I have a little bit for my stem, and I do my stem the wrong way, and that's okay. So let me move all of these things out of the way. I'm going to take a stem and a leaf. I have a 2.5-inch square. I saved lots of jelly roll squares. Imagine that, a jelly roll square. And then I'm just going to fuse that to the back. And then here's the little stem. I'm leaving a little bit of excess on the outside. And I'm going to put it, see how this one has metallic? I'm never using that metallic side. So I'm going to put this on the wrong side of my fabric, and you won't ever see that. There's that. This is a double-sided batik, so it doesn't matter which side. I put this green. And now I have all my bits that I need to assemble my apple. I'm going to come and trim this stem. It's fatter than the stem in the picture, and that's okay. I just kind of hand sketched a stem. You don't have to follow the picture exactly if you don't want to. You can do whatever you want. And I'm going to save this bit because I'll use it for another leaf. So there we have it. Doesn't even have to be perfect. All right, so now we're going to assemble the little apple. So I'm going to take this apple and I'm going to layer it everything on top of here. There's my block, and I'm going to start layering it. First is first, I'm going to remove all of this from the back of my apple. If I really wanted to, I could heavily starch this center part and use a little bit of glue because it's all going to get stitched around in a minute anyway. And then I'm going to just pull that off. Does anybody have any questions about layering fusible web? All right, so there it is. Jan is joining us from the state of Washington, where beautiful apples grow. Welcome, Jan. Welcome everybody else who's just now joining us. All right, so I'm just taking and I'm pulling this off. And the best way to kind of tease your fusible off of there is to use a pin if you can't get it. Just kind of wiggle it on there. But sometimes it helps to have fingernails. I don't have any fingernails. And so there is that part of my apple. I'm going to lay it down like this. And this is overlapping. If you notice, this apple inside is just center of this little apple skin. So it's just to the inside. If you can't get it off a nice way, then you just have to score it like that. And it peels it right off. You're just going to pull it off with your nails if you have them. If you don't, you're going to pull it off that way. And then this will kind of tuck in right next to that. And there is the apple. So I like how that apple is looking. If I want to center it some more, I can just center it. If I want to put it straight, I can put it straight. If I want to put it at an angle, I can. If you want to change the skin of your apple, if you like green apples instead, like Granny Smith, or if you prefer yellow, golden, delicious apples, then you can do those. But you decide how you want to do your apple. And so all I have to do is make sure that this tan is underneath this rim, and then I will put my stem and leaf on there at the same time. But before I do any adhering, I always put all these pieces together. And never be afraid to use different sides of your fabric. Sometimes the color is prettier on one side. I'm going to put that stem underneath there. And all of this will get pinned down. So before I do anything, I will pin it down like this through my mat, and that just kind of holds everything in place before I press it. I'm going to slide that behind here. So my stem, when I drew it, I made it a little bit longer than it is in the image because I'm going to be holding it down. And so just use your pins to hold everything in place. Just like this. And that'll keep stuff from wiggling around. And then the last thing that I want to do is use the back side of my seam ripper, not the sharp side. And I'm going to put a little leaf there. And so that is what I want my apple to do, right? I'm going to take and I'm going to hold that, and I'm just going to use the tip of the iron, and I'm going to press that down along the edges. I'm going to move the pin as I go around, and I want to make sure that I'm laying that apple core where I want it to go, and then I'm coming to the center and pressing it in the center. And that can stretch a little bit, so you just have to kind of be careful and move your pin like that, and then push it down so that in the middle right here, it matches the way it needs to match. Right there, I'm going to hold it with my finger. Don't burn yourself. And then I'm going to come around, and the rest of that gets adhered. Now I can pull these pins off and finish pressing the rest of the apple. And this part of my apple is finished. Now, this apple right here has a couple of seeds. So if I wanted to, I could take a Pigma pen, a micron, and draw those on there. I could embroider those seeds on there, or I could stitch them once I start quilting. I can stitch a little loop of black thread. So it's up to you how you want to make those. You can use a fabric marker. It doesn't even matter. But this is how easy it is to do this little apple. And so you decide what it is that you want to do with yours. And I will grab my fabric marker and I'll show you how I'm going to do mine. So let me grab my fabric marker. I have a whole bin full. Can you guys see me? I have my whole bin full of fabric markers. And then I'm just going to take, this is a tulip. These are permanent. So once you heat set those are permanent. So you can just lay that back there. You want to kind of see where they are. I'm just going to come in here. And I'm going to put a couple of seeds on there. Kind of look like cute eyeballs. And that is it. I'm going to let this heat set because these will heat set. And then when I sew, I will put embroidery floss and make those little seeds more permanent in mine. But that's all you need to do. You don't have to do anything fancy. I will heat set those fabric markers. They wash really well. I've used them on canvas tennis shoes. And you're just going to heat set that just like this. All right. Barbara said, if I keep the freezer paper on, what happens? Well, it won't stick to the back if you keep the paper on there. And so you're gonna want to be able to remove that paper. Now, if you want to put freezer paper and put it to the back and then take the back of your apple and open it up and remove the paper, you can do that. But I tend to remove my paper before I do that. So this is mine. And so my little apple is done. For those of you who are working on your cartwheels quilt, that's the one behind me. Let me just go ahead and remove that and make it invisible. For those of you who are working on your cartwheels quilt, this is mine. It's finished. And I'm actually working on a second one. And then I took all of my leftovers from my cartwheels quilt and I'm making a bunch of little 4 patches. So that's what I'm doing with mine. This is all the leftovers from my cartwheel quilt, and I'm going to be doing a scrappy little pillow for my couch. All right, friends, that is it. Does anybody have questions about this project? Somebody said, what kind of markers did I use? These are tulip fabric markers, and they come like in a set like this, and I use these on like canvas tennis shoes. They come in like a dozen colors. Some of them are neon, but these can be used to make fabric labels. You can use them to write in your children's clothes before you send them off to camp, and they don't wash out. They're super, super easy. All right, everybody, if you are going to work on this one, we have another meeting for the Fruit of the Spirit. Our next one is on March the 9th. We're going to be working on the banana for Gentleness. So go ahead and finish your apple blocks. Get those done. We will be back on March the 9th. And then if you have not done your pillow of the month for March, it doesn't take very long. You should try to use that. Let me see. I have any more questions out there before I sign off. Tina said, can we use Inktense pencils? Absolutely. I was going to use Inktense pencils on this to do the little gray speckles on mine and to do the other little lines. So if you notice on the picture, it has those little speckles. I'm going to put those little speckles on mine with my Inktense markers. So I'm going to embellish mine. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to zigzag just like I did my orange. So if you notice, you guys see that? I just zigzagged around the edges and I'm going to zigzag the center. So nothing fancy, but it looks really, really good. If you want to take and do a blanket stitch around your fruit, let me show you what it looks like when you do a blanket stitch. So let me just show you. Let me lower this camera so you guys can see. So there's the blanket stitch. If you want to do a blanket stitch, it looks just like that. This is straight stitch. This is blanket stitch. This is zigzag. I played with all the stitches. So this one is zigzagged all the way around the big circle. This one is zigzag and blanket stitch. So this is zigzagged. This is blanket stitch. So you don't have to do it any particular way. This is blanket stitched top and bottom because I used little bits of fabric. So I even blanket stitched it all in red, the whole thing. And I like how that turned out. So no particular way that you have to do it. This one is straight stitch. So you decide how you want to finish those edges, but it doesn't really matter. It's whatever you prefer. And so we're getting close, friends. All right, that is all for now. I will see you guys in 2 weeks on March the 9th to work on the Fruit of the Spirit. I will have an extra quilt pattern that I'm working on that you guys are going to love. It's called Stepping Stone, but I'm going to wait until spring break to release that one because I have too many projects in process, and this is the year that I'm getting rid of my UFOs, not creating more. So all right, friends, let me move this camera out of the way. I just want to thank you. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe so that you can get all of the patterns and all of the information. And then one more question, Sue says, what are the green blocks on top of my quilt? Let me show you what they are. I'm going to share my desktop, Sue. It's the one that we just made. I'm going to share my desktop. Can you guys see my desktop? All right, Sue. That one is the pillow of the month. If you go to March to the pillow of the month and you get the handout, those blocks are for my giant quadruple Irish chain pillow that I worked on today. So if you have not seen that, go out there, click on the link, find the handout, and you'll see exactly how to make those blocks that are behind me so that you can make a giant quadruple Irish chain if you want to. All right, everybody, thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you guys on March the 9th. Bye-bye.